I'm Whitney.
I'm Mindy.
And I'm Deb.
We're three best friends who love nerdy things.
Well, some people think we're nerdy, but we think we're pretty awesome.
This is Our Nerdiest Thing.
Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. Today, we are finishing our discussion of Pucking Around by Emily Rath. We'll be talking about chapter 73 through the epilogue, and a very special guest with us today, the author herself, Dr. Emily Rath. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. This is so fun. You guys have been doing this.
We're really excited.
Yeah.
We've loved this book so far.
yes.
It's been really fun.
It has. And just quick reminder to our listeners, we are spoiler heavy and spoiler friendly, so please listen with care.
I mean, I do want to point out that in my show notes, I talk about the next book too. So we're spoiler heavy people. So just,
Listen at your own risk.
Right. But I mean, everyone knows that Emily Rath has a happily ever after. So I don't feel like we're spoiling too much.
Yeah. Deb, will you please share about our nerdiest cocktail?
Of course. Tonight's drink is called, and Emily, so Mindy came up with our drink for tonight, and she put like Finnish fucking words in
I'm
this.
really
and
excited
so
to hear you pronounce
I'm really
those.
irritated, so I'm going to try to do this, and then you just correct me, please, for the love of God. Okay, so tonight's drink is called the Rakas. Is that right?
Yeah, you gotta, for Finns, they kind of roll their R's. So I've actually,
Rakas?
my thing for 2024, so it's more like a Rakas. Yeah, a Rakas.
Ooh,
like it's
Rakas.
a rolled R.
That
I'm
makes it
terrible at
sexy.
rolling
It does
R's.
sound way sexier.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's the Rakas, a take on a Finnish long drink. So this drink is themed after sexy Finnish goalies, and it pairs well with secret medical advice, Olympic gold medals, and Mindy and monster cocks. It may cause you to utter Marakastan Sua. Is that right?
Yeah, Marakasan Sua. I love you. Yeah,
During
Marakasan
sexy
Sua.
times. I did it. I
You
can't believe
did?
I
You
did
sounded
it.
amazing.
When
That
I
was
saw that in
beautiful.
the show notes today, I was like, fuck you
Yeah, I
for
did that
making
on
me say that. So this drink has lemon juice, grapefruit juice, a ton of gin. I think Mindy doubled our gin and it still tastes delicious. Grapefruit soda, use Fresca, right?
Yes.
And then some club soda and a grapefruit slice. It's quite delicious. So, but drink with care because gin can hit you pretty fast.
I feel like that's like summer in a glass. Like
Yes.
you need
It's
to be
delicious.
You need to be on a patio, and it needs to be. Yeah,
I know you're in
summertime.
Florida. It's like 20 degrees right now. We're like
Yeah.
miserable
Nobody's
up
on their
here.
patio in Louisville,
No,
Kentucky.
yeah, it's not great.
It was chilly today. I had to have 2 layers on because I was outside running around all day. It was a little chilly down here.
Well, before we get into it, Mindy, will you please share with us whose turn it is to do the Nerdy and Dirty recap?
It's my turn, which I'm really excited about.
Ooh.
So, Emily, this is 10 things about the chapter. We all prepare because we don't know who's going to get called. It's 10 things
Yeah.
about the chapter just to give the listeners a recap about what we read. So sometimes we hit it really well and sometimes we don't.
We don't.
All right.
I'll be here. I am taking notes.
Give us a grade at the end,
Oh
please.
my goodness.
So it was actually because when I got your show notes, I had to be like 73 to the end because like readers will do that all the time. They'll be like, "I loved, chapter 21," and I'll be like, "I don't have them
what?
memorized."
Right.
You have to go back and look. So I was like, "What happened 73 to the end?" No, we're good. I'm ready. I'm so ready. I'm ready.
Mindy, I've got 60
pressure's
seconds on the
on.
clock. Are
Okay.
you ready?
Yes, I am
All right.
ready.
Ready, set, and go.
Number 1, 3-way shower sex. Number 2, 3-way closet sex at the rink. Number 3, Rachel and Caleb wear Ilmari's and Jake's jerseys to a game and stir up a whole pot of shit. 4, finally we get some 4-way action. Teamwork makes the dream work. 5, the crew decides to go public because the cat is starting to come out of the bag anyway. 6, Jake goes feral on the dude that injured Kay and they admit their feelings for each other but get cock-blocked by Jerry. Damn you, Jerry. All hell breaks loose and the foursome have to come clean to the coach and Poppy and the team. The 4 of them have a let's get illegally married claiming fuckfest. Rachel loses her job, but the guys scheme big time to get it back for her. And finally, Ilmari wins the Olympic gold medal, and the fearsome foursome have celebratory, yay, you ditched the IUD sex. Boom.
Wow,
You did the
look at
IUD
you.
sex. That was 45 seconds, Mindy. I don't know
That
how
might
you
be the
did
best
that.
I've ever done.
Emily,
impressive.
since we have 15 seconds left, is there anything where you're like, we should have said this?
Oh my goodness. No, I don't know if I can fill it in 15 seconds. That was pretty good. Right?
Good job, Mindy.
I think I got almost all the sex
Tess
in there.
is in there. For people that love Pucking Wild, Tess shows up, right? Tess
That
shows
is
up.
true. Yes,
That's right. Yeah. She, I love her. I think you probably saw this online, but I gave Pucking Wild 5 stars. That book is just amazing.
I loved it
So
too.
is this one. Don't get me wrong, but Tess is just, she's
love
my
her.
kind of girl.
Yeah, I love Tess. Well, Mindy, will you please? I'm really excited for this. I had forgotten, but now I just saw your notes and I'm really excited for this. Will you please do our nerdiest vocabulary?
I am so excited about our nerdiest vocabulary this week. So last episode, we got into a discussion about the word cunt. And I promised that I would do some cunt research because apparently, and I did not know this, in popular culture, Whitney said that it's being used, like when you say something's cunty, it's like not...
It's positive.
It's a positive thing.
thing.
And that the word has gotten to be a very, like, have a negative connotation. So I wanted to research and just kind of see where this all came from. So our nerdiest vocabulary is about cunt or cunty. The exact origins of the word cunt are actually unknown because it's actually a really old word and has sounds that are common to many languages in the ancient East and West. So the word kunti, a Sanskrit word for the female genitalia, and there is also a Hindu nature goddess named Kunti as well. So, and then further from that, Egyptian writings from, and I'm going to say this wrong, Ptah-hotep include the word cunt, and it's spelled with a K, and it appears to have been a term of respect, actually, when referring to women.
I can't wait to start calling you this
As
all
it
the
should
time.
be, yeah. But it has to be with a K,
Yes.
like the Kardashians.
Oh, I'm gonna
Or
be
like
like
the band Corn. Talk about respecting women.
Yeah, I'm going to say, hey, cunt with a K. So, anyways, it appears to have been a term of respect referring to women. And then somewhere along the lines, the idea of patriarchy crept in and women's sexuality was considered taboo. And therefore, words that describe it were considered crass. So, I mean, not anything new that we don't already know. But technically speaking, the word cunt actually describes genitalia more accurately than the word vagina does.
Why?
So vagina has Latin origins and refers to a sword sheath. So basically a holster for the penis, so to speak. But cunt describes the entire female organ, external and internal, including labia, vulva, vagina, and clitoris.
Well, and not all vaginas are sword sheaths either.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So the word cunt actually accounts for female sexual pleasure, where the word vagina does not.
Interesting.
So it's more of an all-encompassing term of, I would say, female empowerment.
Well, and what started this conversation last week was that we were saying we don't really love the word,
Yeah.
and then you brought up that it's become
Yeah.
like this positive thing. But now I'm kind of
into it, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's really only an insult if you think that strong women with sexual desire are a bad thing.
I think a lot of men do.
And they do, yes. That's where the
That's a
patriarchy
word.
comes. So language is actually always ultimately about context, right? So our current cultural understanding, and mind you, this is a patriarchal understanding, is that the word is still an insult for many people. It does seem that younger generations, though, are trying to reappropriate it and have a more positive spin on it. In 1995, so going way back to the 90s here.
The late 1900s.
That was like 10 years ago.
It was a lot longer than
Shut
that.
up.
Anyway, so in 1995, a drag queen named Kevin Aviance released the song Cunty, The Feeling. So as far back as 1995, this was something that was being done.
Interesting.
It played a large part in the reclamation of the word. So Beyonce later even sampled it in her song Pure Honey, taking it even further into the mainstream. And I have a friend that I work with, actually. His name's Lucas. Shout out to Lucas.
Lucas.
He's actually active in our local drag community, so I wanted to get their take on the whole phenomena. And Lucas is young, and I would say, honestly, I don't really know how old they are.
He's younger than the four of us.
But he's younger than the four. Yes, he's younger than us. I would say late 20s. And he said that they have never had a problem with the word, and also that perhaps the show Drag Race helped bolster the mainstream revival of the word, because in the show, if they want to win, they have to have charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent.
I did not know that.
Right?
Oh,
So-
nice.
CUNT. So further, of course, I had to go check the Urban Dictionary. Emily, I do this every time. It's always very enlightening. And just to see what gems I could find to shed light on the subject. And as usual, it did not disappoint. There were a couple of entries that mentioned derogatory meanings, but mostly it had positive connotations, which I thought was kind of cool. So the first one, the word cunty, they said means sexy, iconic, epic, and never been done before.
Now, see, that is where I think, because originally this whole conversation started because of the TikTok I saw of a Jessica Simpson performance. And it was the little drummer boy, but make it cunty.
Yes.
So I think that's what it said. And that's why I was like, I don't understand. I'm old. But I feel like that's how it was being used.
Yes, exactly.
I'm with it. I'm hip and happening.
I'm getting on board. I tell you what, I'm getting on board. I've said cunt more in this episode than I've probably said in my entire life. So, go for it. Another one said a word used to define something that is very bad bitch-esque, very fierce, very cool. An outfit can be described as this: a person, a photo, or anything. An Anglo-Saxon term of extreme approval, something that is badass or bitchin', which I loved that they use the word bitchin'. Because, that is so my era. 80s girl here. Affectionate term for a good friend or mate. And I remember in my early 20s, it was a big thing to call your friends heifers. I don't know if you all ever did that. So I guess it's the same idea. We'd be like, hey, heifer. So maybe the same idea. I don't know.
No, unfortunately, when I was in my 20s, that's when Paris Hilton was in her 20s. So everyone was like, hey, slut, which I always really hated.
Yeah.
Slut.
Lovely.
Oh, yeah.
So just to sum up, as is typical when I research what I think are going to be taboo topics, the majority of the world doesn't necessarily consider it taboo. It's basically just us Americans, born and bred. I thought that this quote actually from porn performer Misha Mayfair sums it up really nicely. I didn't want to change the words or anything because I really, really loved what they said. So the quote is, reframing words like cunt is important because it's so uncomfortable and confronting it feels obscene to say it. Cunt has been used against so many people. Turning the tools of oppression into something we can then own is an expression of feminism that I personally love and think more people should practice. We can't control the hateful rhetoric that some spew about us, but we can take their words and make them powerful, playful, angry, or sexy.
I like that.
I love that.
Yeah. So I was very enlightened by my cunt research.
We joked around a lot on the last episode about words that are used in romance books or even romantasy or anything like that kind of kill the vibe for us. And so, Emily, one of mine was, I don't know if you've read Butcher and the Blackbird yet, but it's amazing. But they have a lot of anal sex, and he always calls it pleated folds. And for me, that's not necessarily very sexy. I'm like, please don't spread my pleated folds, right? So I'm really
something.
Yeah, I'm wondering I'm wondering as an author if there are any phrases that you refuse to use or a no-go for you whenever you're writing.
Yeah, I don't like the word jizz. I don't like the word jizz. So I tend to just for men, it'll be my cum. I just use cum pretty much.
The word cum is kind of hot, to be honest. It really is. But jizz feels derogatory to me.
Or
jizz
even
feels middle school.
Yeah, I'll sometimes read spunk.
Ooh.
And I hate that even worse than jizz.
We all had a visceral reaction.
My spunk. I've read it several times. And I'm like, nope, hard pass.
It's too close to the word funk.
Spunk, jizz. I would say no to pleated folds, but also just anything folds. I'm not into folds. But it's funny that you did this with the vocabulary research because I went down the deepest of rabbit holes. Oh my gosh, I had so much fun when I did my Regency books because I was looking up Regency era slang. And
fun.
It was so much fun. It is wild. I probably found 200 words for women's body parts. And they are so lyrical and creative. They were wild. So it was a lot of fun,
I
like
love
looking at
that.
what the different words are, what they mean, or like what they imply, because sometimes you'll read something and it's like, what is that even supposed to mean? And it will have like a paragraph explanation, because it's like you have to understand the context of the time of why they would call it. They would like refer to it as a certain duchess, and it's like it's because she was alive, and whatever. It's just crazy. Of like, that is so specific.
Oh my God.
I do have a random question for you, Emily. Are the Regency era books on audio at all?
Yes, they all are.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I need to find them. I don't think my library has them, because as soon as we came back from Lit, I tried to find them in audio. So I need to just get them off Audible, I guess. I'm assuming they're available there.
Yeah. The third book just came out in, I want to say, I think it was early November. The third one came out.
Okay, great.
So now all three of them that are out in that series are in KU, Kindle, paperback, and audio.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to have to just use audio credits. Tell him it's my husband's account. He has like 7. He can give up 3.
Yeah, he can.
Well, Mindy, thank you for doing that research. I appreciate it. Dare I say that was a real cunty segment.
Thank you. Thanks,
I
Heifer.
appreciate it. Thanks, Slut.
Not slut is not positive. Cunt is.
Well, it's a Taylor Swift song now. She's reclaiming it for us.
okay.
One lyric at a time.
Just like Beyonce.
Just like Beyonce, exactly. So let's go ahead and get into this last section, chapters 73 through the epilogue, the end of the book. Let's start with our favorite moment. What was everybody's favorite moment?
Deb, I'd love to hear yours.
Sure. Okay. So mine is pretty specific. And it's when, and I don't think it says who does it, but someone drapes Ilmari's jersey over Caleb's head when he's naked and tied to the dresser. And that's it. Caleb was teasing everybody and he got what he deserved.
Yeah, he did.
Like, he's tied to the dresser. He's not allowed to watch anything. They have put something over his face. And poor Rachel, because she's like, oh, but I can't see him. Like, let him up here. And they're like, no, he can't do shit. Like,
This is between us.
Caleb he was just being a brat.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And I love seeing, honestly, like that daddy Dom side of him, and see him start like teasing everybody and not be so serious. But then he also has to take the consequences of being a little brat. So I loved that.
He's going to dish it.
That
He
was
has
a good
to take
moment.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Mindy?
I loved the scene where they put the mattresses together and make a big bed big enough for all of them. I just think it's perfection, that whole
sweet.
scene. And then Rachel comes in and sees it as like she's moved to tears. And then Jake and Omari stress that she hates it. They're like, oh my God, she hates it. And Caleb's reading her so well that he knows that she loves it. And then the big pile into the bed and Rachel snuggling Caleb and he doesn't want to snuggle and it's hilarious. And then the whole declaration of love and she feels safe even if it's just for that moment before, of course, everything blows up around them. I just love that scene. Was perfection.
I will say for me, I'm the Caleb, because I'm like, please don't make
not
me
cuddle
sleep
me.
with any more people besides my husband. Because like last night I was cold and I was like, here, like come up, lean up against me because I'm cold. And then once I get warm, I'm like, get off.
Okay, now we're done. Yeah, I'm like that too, Deb.
Don't look me in the eye. Don't talk to me. Roll over to your side of the bed. We're done.
Yeah, this is over now. Well, mine is a little bit different than your all's choice. Honestly,
It usually is.
Yeah. My favorite part is not really a moment, but I really loved the way that Rachel handled being suspended from her job, because I was getting very frustrated with her and the guys of like, you're gonna get caught. Like, you guys are being so like irresponsible, and the PDA and stuff, you're gonna get caught. And so I was very happy when she did get, she had to face the consequences of that. I really appreciated that she was like, yeah, no, I kind of deserve this. And I'm going to, like, this totally sucks, but I'm going to be mature and take it because I absolutely should be suspended. Yes.
I will say, I feel like Rachel is a very spontaneous decision maker, but she also really does. I think it's because she is quick to think things through, right? Like she doesn't make bad decisions. So I think it kind of just shows her maturity that she's like, well, yeah, I mean, I probably shouldn't have been sleeping with the players
in the closet, like at work.
Right.
Yeah. And that leads into my least favorite, because my least favorite moments were I wrote the work hour sex.
I loved those moments.
I did too.
See, for me, like, I think that's just my anxiety, and I'm such a rule follower. The whole, like, all of those scenes, I was like, oh, that douchey doctor guy's going to come in. I can't remember his name at the moment. Jerry. Yeah. I was waiting for him to be the one to catch them every single time, and it really stressed me out.
Well, and see, I'm a rule follower like you are, as long as the rules make sense to me, and if I'm horny, rules don't matter. And Emily, I know you don't go by like chapter, right? Because you write a lot, and I know this isn't the only book in the series, but just overall, is there a favorite part of this book that you just love?
The book or this particular section?
Whichever. I didn't want to,
Nice.
since you said the thing about chapter 21, I didn't want to put pressure on you.
Yeah, well, no, because I went through and I looked, because we started here with chapter 73, and chapter 73 is where Mars kind of like finally joins the team, you know, and like we get our first threesome scene. And I love, just because I know what comes and like the foreshadowing and everything that comes later. I read it again as I was looking at it. I was like, oh God, I love that line where Kay is like pushing him. It's like, you want my cock? You call me by my name. You know, I'm like, that it's like, you want me to join? Like, you have to say it. I want to hear you say it. You're curious enough. You want me to come in, and you can't call me Sanford. You have to call me Caleb, you know? And so it's just kind of, I like that dynamic of he's like, ugh, Caleb, get over here, you know? Yeah. So that was fun. But
I do love how they push Amari to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, because for some people really didn't like that. You know, they thought that they were, the other three of them almost kind of like picking on him or like too pushy. And I can see that. Like, I can see how you could feel that way. But I feel like I had such joy writing this entire book. Like, I have not laughed that hard writing these scenes. I was just having the time of my life. I had so much fun. And what it really came down to is like 4 people meant to be together. 4 people that understand each other better than they understand themselves in some of these cases. So like where Caleb's reading her for filth, or where the guys just know how to push Omari. Like, it's time to push him. Yeah. And they're not hurting him. It's not too much. It's what he needs. And they know him so well that it's like, they just they're like magnets, you know, with each other. And so I loved building out that kind of dynamic across the 4 of them, of like this kismet moment of 4 people that are meant to be together, and how they play off each other and know each other and know when to push and know when to push harder, know when to tease, know when to stop teasing. That was really fun of building out that dynamic between 4 very different people and very different personalities.
I was going to say, I'm surprised that people were bothered by that, and maybe it's because I'm the pusher of my friend group. I'm the one that's always like, let's go do this, right? But Ilmari would say no if he didn't want to. And I think maybe that's why it doesn't bother me, is that everyone would be like, well, he said no, and we're going to respect that. It's, I mean, so much of what you write, and honestly, like thinking about like dominance in any type of book and like a sexual experience or anything like that, it's all about trust, right? So if the trust is not set up in the book, it doesn't work. And Ilmari does trust them, even if he's quiet about it. So yeah, that didn't rub me the wrong way, because he would have just been like, no, I don't want to do it. Yeah.
No.
I saw it more as establishing boundaries for this new like little family, right? Like Ilmari at this point just is like, I'm here for Rachel. You guys, I mean, that's great. I'm here for her, right? But Caleb is like, well, you can't just be here with her. Like, we're all a unit. We're all a group together. And I saw it like that, establishing those kind of boundaries. So that was my favorite and least favorite moments. What about you guys?
My least favorite does actually have to do with Ilmari, and it has to do with him understanding that Jake and Caleb do actually want him to move into the house. So he was waiting for a formal invitation and assumed that his feelings just might be one-sided. And I totally get it. The poor guy had a shitty father. The team ignores his broody ass all the time. But it broke my heart. But I will say, the comedic relief from Jake telling him that he's terrified of Ilmari's monster cock really helped. It really helped transition the scene for me and ease the tension, because Jake, even, I didn't write it down, but he says something like, did you want like a bouquet of roses and for me to get down on one knee? Like, Ilmari doesn't realize how literal these guys are. Like, he said on the first day, move in, and Ilmari was like, he's just kind of saying that. Right. But Jake doesn't really say things he doesn't mean. But Ilmari didn't know that. And so for me, like watching the internal struggle of Ilmari feeling like, am I more into this than she is? Like all of that. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the hardest part about meeting anybody new, you know? Yeah. So, and I joke all the time, my husband dies, I'm not dating anyone. I don't want to do that shit. What about you, Min?
Well, my least favorite moment was when Jerry cockblocks Jake and Caleb, because fuck you, Jerry. Like, I wanted to see that. Like, so pissed off. But it also got me thinking about getting caught in the act, and like, were there any famous couples or anything that were cockblocked? And so I did a little bit of a deep dive into like couples that got cock blocked. So these are all self-reported.
Like, this like just came up on the internet. Cock blocked couples.
Well, I mean, no, but but these are all self-reported, so you can decide if it's true or if they just wanted a fun story. But I did find a few gems. The first one I found was Cara Delevingne apparently has a lot of airplane sex, but she just skips the bathroom and just goes at it in her seat.
I was just about to say, in the bathroom? Because that's really gross.
In the seat.
Airplane bathrooms are really gross.
But also, I don't want to sit in the seat where they've just had sex, because you know they don't spend like hours cleaning that plane.
True. But she probably, has her own plane. I don't know.
Flies chartered.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Fingers crossed.
So apparently one time a guy was watching them, and he didn't like tell on him and say like, oh my God, there's people having sex. But they ended up telling the stewardess that the guy kept staring at them and asked if she could make him stop staring at us.
We're fucking. If he could not stare at us, that would be great.
That would be awesome. A private moment here.
In public.
The next one I found was from Fabrizio Moretti, and he and Drew Barrymore were together. And they got bored during the opera La Boheme. I guess it was not a very...
you do.
Yeah. So they decided to get down and dirty in the opera bathroom. And he is quoted as saying, quote, if we'd gone to the men's room, people would have heard it and said, good on you, man. But we were in the ladies' room. And when we heard an old woman start to tinkle, this is his words, we couldn't help but crack up. I guess she told the security guy. He came in and was like, just go. So they got cockblocked by an old lady tinkling.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I'm in here to do bathroom business. I'm going to do it.
I'm going to tell myself I've been with Mindy in public where I was intoxicated enough that I tried to have public sex with my husband. And
yes, I do.
He had to be like, Deborah, stop.
It was quite. It was awesome. Actually, it was super fun. Hilarious. I'm so glad I was there to witness it. So this one's a little bit ironic because it's Steven Tyler, and he sings "Love in an Elevator," and he was caught having sex in, you guessed it, an elevator. So I guess it's a long way down from the penthouse, but not long enough, because the doors opened up and they're opened up into the lobby, and he has said, quote, this is his quote, there were all these people, not children, but people. I was like, holy shit. So can you imagine the elevator door opens and you see...
I really like Aerosmith, but I do not want to see Steven Tyler's ass.
I don't either.
I really don't.
And then finally, this one just cracked me up because it has to do with kids, and I just think it's so funny because we always tease with our kids. Our kids have known since they were in middle school that, sex is a thing that their parents do, and we're going to joke about it. So, but this was funny. So Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos' daughter walked in on them on her 18th birthday. So she's old enough to know what it is.
Worse.
I know, right? And they said she told them, thanks for ruining my birthday and thanks for ruining my life. I used to see in color and now everything is gray.
At least when they're like 10 and under, you can be like, well, when mommy and daddy love each other, like,
Yeah. But 18, it's like she already knows what's going on. Yeah.
Special mommy daddy hugs. But when you're 18, no.
No.
You'll never forget.
Here's the thing. So I hate to bring it back down because now we have to ask Emily what her least favorite part was, and all those stories were really great. Those don't sound like bad stories to me, but
no, I think it's funny.
Yeah. Emily, what was your least favorite part?
My least favorite part. I'm trying to think. If I take it back to like critiques that I got, or like a question when the book first came out, a question that I got. So I don't know that it's my least favorite part, but it was something that I felt like I kept pushing up against, was people wanted more of an arc for Avery. It's like, why is he so upset? Or they wanted is there redemption, or is there some, like, what's his dark twisty? Like, why is he so bothered? Why is he so pushed? And there was the part of it for me of like, there was the validation of like, there are just shitty fucking men out there that are shitty and fucking terrible. He doesn't have a dark twisty. He doesn't have, he wanted a raise and didn't get it. Maybe he does. I don't give a shit. Yeah. He's a shitty person. He's two-dimensional. Let him be two-dimensional. Yeah. But like, so that was something that it was like, I was trying to do enough heavy lifting, making all these other characters three-dimensional. That when it came to Avery, it's like, can we just accept that there are shitty men that behave shittily to us? Yeah. Like, sometimes, you know?
Right.
No, I totally agree. I think it's super important to know, like, you know, to portray that it's, you know, everything's not sunshine and roses. Yes, there are dicks in the world, and yes, there are homophobes in the world, and yes, there are people that are going to try to, you know, tear you down, and you just got to say fuck off and be okay.
Well, and I think too, from a creative point of view, I think people that aren't super creative don't understand that if that character is two-dimensional to you as a writer, they're never going to be three-dimensional, right? Like, I will procrastinate on a creative order with my design business if I think it's stupid, or I don't feel super like, you know, enlightened by it, or I'm not getting to create something new. I'll put it off until the last minute because it's not fun. Yeah. So why would you want to write about someone who you think ultimately sucks? They don't have a redemption arc because they're a shitty person. Yeah.
But it's like, it's like he didn't need more. He didn't need more. He didn't need more backstory. He was a plot device of like, we've all been there, right? And it doesn't even have to be a man. You can just have someone at your work who's just shitty and vindictive of like, that person at work that's like, who shit in your coffee? You know, of like, we've all had that. And so it's like, but it was just interesting to me how pressed people were of like, we want to understand his big why. Yeah. And I was just like, I don't think he has one. I don't want to investigate that. Yeah. He's someone shits in his coffee perpetually. You know?
It's like he's a villain, so just let him be one.
Let him be one.
Yeah. He's not a misunderstood villain either. He's just a villain.
Right.
He's just shitty. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about our biggest revelations.
What's yours, Whitney?
Well, mine, kind of, because I've talked about this the first couple of episodes, right? That I wanted to keep reading because I wanted to be able to look at the whole story as a whole story, right? And not just look at it in pieces, because some of the group scenes made me a little uncomfy. But that's
Whitney's the sweet girl of the podcast. Although we've got her to say some really raunchy stuff on here.
Well, I did say cunty earlier. But that's not a bad word anymore. So,
no, it's not.
But I really liked getting to the end. I really feel like I did not understand until I got to the very end that, and I guess you can correct me, Emily, if this is an incorrect interpretation, but I didn't really fully get that this whole story is essentially like a fairy tale story, right? And there were a lot of little things, and we talked about this a little bit, Deb, last week, about like, okay, they had this conversation, but everyone was just cool with it and nobody had any jealousy, or like there have been little things like that kind of tripped me up along the way. But getting to the end, it was kind of like, oh, this is like a fairy tale story, right? Like, just like I would suspend disbelief for stuff in a fantasy book, that same kind of work is happening here in this story with this family. And that's why that there's not a ton of like jealousy or arguments between the four of them. Like, and it made a lot more sense to me when I kind of saw it through that lens. I don't know if I'm making sense to you guys, but
that makes sense. Yeah, you needed the bigger picture. You needed to be able to look at this as fiction, right? I mean, you knew it was fiction,
well, not
but
even
like
necessarily that. Yeah, but just like get to the end and like to be able to look at it as a whole and not wonder where is this going, but to be able to look at it, okay, here's where it was going the whole time. And now I can look back and understand how things worked better.
You want to know what's really funny is my biggest revelation, and also what I just so happen to like the most about this book, is almost the complete opposite of yours. So I really enjoyed learning more about polyamorous relationships and how they can work in a trusting relationship, because you only see, and we talked about this last episode, you only see polyamory in television in terms of like making like a buck off of it, right? Like we talked about Sister Wives just a little bit last week, and how they really kind of made fun of that. And it wasn't a true polyamorous relationship because there wasn't trust built up, and they weren't in they had no agreement in terms of the relationship, right? And so I really love the deep dive that you did last week, Mindy, and I think it really helps some people understand that it can be a positive thing for some couples. Like some couples are not meant to be inside a box of one person that they are monogamous to. But I love that you talked about how it's not cheating if there's an agreement, and you can have like these different types of polyamorous relationships. And I wrote in my show notes, though, I'm a jealous, competitive bitch. And so I think it would only really work for me if Rachel died and I had Jake, Caleb, and Ilmari. I don't think it could work for me in real life, because and I talked about this last week. I'd be like, so is she better than me? Like I would struggle with it. But I loved seeing the point of view of this is a extremely healthy relationship, because I've not seen that in a Why Choose book yet, where except for maybe Jay Bree's Bonds That Tie, which I feel like we talk about every episode, but you don't really see that there's this whole trust component behind these polyamorous relationships. And I really, really loved that. It was even though I'm a very open sexually person, it was very eye-opening for me. Even I never judged anyone that was in that type of relationship, but I never thought about it the way that Emily writes it, or the way that you kind of broke it down last week. So I really like that. That was I would agree with a long thing about polyamorous relationships.
Well, mine seems a little bit like not as deep, but
was it Omari's dick? Was that your biggest revelation?
It does have to do with Omari.
It's a revelation.
So my revelation actually kind of came too with my cunt research, but with respect to the book, it's when Ilmari tells the FIHA about his personal life and like still gets to be on the Olympic team because they're like, we don't fucking care. It just made me realize more how sexually repressed that we are in America. Just because you don't agree with whatever's going on doesn't mean that it's not okay for somebody else.
Right.
Like to me, and I guess it just was really reminded me that there's this whole other world out there that does not think like us. Like we are the most prudish country in the entire world.
And that kind of ties into what I was saying too, right? Yeah. About seeing it as kind of a fairy tale situation, because if this scenario were to happen here right now
in America,
it would not play out this way.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the reactions from the team, from their families, the support that they get from everybody, from the Finnish Olympic Committee or whatever their official title is, like that would not play out
especially
that way,
with them being a brand new team. They would be like, no scandal, no nothing. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Emily, we talked a little bit about this in the interview with you, back in the fall, but one thing that you said when you wrote this was just kind of like your own sexual journey, and like kind of like this opening to like being okay with like different types of sexuality. So do you feel like this book was kind of like a healing moment for you, or is it what opened that journey up for you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I had already been on the journey for a long time in terms of unpacking. For me, it all comes together of my fundamentalist Christian upbringing, like the strong evangelical upbringing that I was in, unpacking so much about shame culture, sexual suppression, sexual submission. There was so much about my life that I was in a very, very small box. And unpacking my queerness, I was a queer person, like trapped in this box as well. So unpacking so much of this has been, the journey of a decade and a half. And then as I started exploring more, as I started reading Why Choose books, and then I started writing my own Why Choose books, all of it has been kind of like almost like a form of therapy of like me going through and unlearning these things that I had learned that are very toxic and are very constraining. And, the idea that monogamy is going to work for every single person on this earth is ludicrous. It's just ludicrous. There are people that maybe they are incredibly comfortable in a monogamous relationship. There are people that don't want a relationship, period. There are, so it's like the whole range of like, what are we looking for in life? And then there are people that are looking for multiple connections, or just this idea of like, the frustration I would have, even like you can have with your own partner, where it's like, you're not meeting all my needs. And then you're frustrated that one person isn't meeting all your needs. And it's like, that is such a burden to place on that one person. Yeah. And so even I think it opened my eyes, like a revelation I had even talking to people as I tried to explain it, is like, look, even if you think of like your sister, and the relationship you need with her is going to be different than maybe the one you have with your best friend, which is different than what you have with your partner, which is different than what you have with your work wife. You think of like, you already kind of have the dynamics of what is kind of a polyamorous style relationship of like, not one person can complete you. And so what we're imagining here is, and what I'm trying to explore even more as I go through this series, is like Jake and Ilmari have been such a revelation for people of the idea of metamors. I don't want to fuck you. I love you. I love you. I would die for you. I will call you husband. We are ride or dies. If the other two die, we will grow old together. I will never leave you, but I don't want to fuck you. And that was really hard for readers to be like, no, they have to be in love. They have to fuck. And it's like, no, they don't. This is a platonic partnership, and that's valid too. And so for so many polyamorous people, they were like, oh my gosh, I've never felt more seen, because they are in units where they have a metamor. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I love her to death. She's my best friend. Would we ever fuck? Never.
Right.
But she's a ride or die, and she lives in my home with me. And she makes my partner happy in ways that I don't. And I love that for both of them, And so I think there's so many ways in which we can all be thinking about like, am I kind of, sort of polyamorous in my life already, and not even using that terminology for it? As you look at the different friendships you have and the closeness that maybe some of those relationships are. And so that's been really fun to unpack with readers, and for readers to be like, oh my God, I'm polyamorous. And, I've had so many readers in my DMs that are like, I came out to my partner and then they came out to me, and we're the happiest we've ever been, because we're just letting go of these societal norms that we were holding on to for God only knows what reason. And it's like, we're just happier being our authentic selves and who we are. We need more from more people to be satisfied.
Right.
And we're both happy with that,
I like what you said about it being a lot of pressure on one person.
Yeah. I mean, so much pressure. It's so unfair, right? It's like, it makes you like flip the mirror around and be like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't want that pressure on me to meet their every need, when they need it, how they need it,
right.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. It's a lot of pressure. It's so stressful.
But I like what you said about the friendships too, because like when my daughter came out, like she was asking a lot of questions about being into women, and she was asking about Mindy in particular, because we've been friends for a really long time, and I said the same thing. I'm like, I love Mindy. Like I said, when our husbands die, we're probably moving in together. We're going to drive each other crazy. I don't want to fuck Mindy. No offense.
No, I think you're super hot. Right. But I don't want to.
Yeah, like what does Jake keep calling?
What about me?
Well, you came into the friendship later, so
you're the Ilmari of this equation.
But I mean, Jake keeps calling Ilmari his
metaphor.
paramour or metaphor or something.
Metaphor.
Yeah, and so like it's interesting that you say that though, because in all marriages, even if it is a monogamous, non-polyamorous relationship, I need things from these two girls that my husband cannot give me.
Well, and it's what I love too is like thinking about, all our relationships, because that made me think about like how me and Brian go to concerts together, because you don't want to go to fucking concerts with him, and so like, but I don't want to have sex with Brian either. I just want to go listen to music with him. So that's a part of
he's your metamor.
He's my metaphor.
Metaphor, yeah.
So, but like even that little piece, it makes so much sense.
Yeah,
and I think it's because there's the sexual aspect to it that our prudish American roots can't get past.
Right.
I think that's what's so important, though, and that's what so many polyamorous people have told me or reiterated to me, or like, there's so many amazing accounts you can follow, especially on TikTok, with polyamorous people that are incredibly generous and open and sharing, what their experiences are of polyamory does not have to be about sex. So many polyamorous people don't center sex at all. Like there's a person I follow, they're demisexual. They are currently in a complicated triad, they're like the center of multiple triad groupings. They are platonic with all of them, but they're like, they are my partner. This is serious. This is a relationship. We use the term partner. They are in my life in a meaningful way. We do not have sex. And that's valid too. Yes. This idea of like life partnerships, like you're saying, like if our husbands die, we will move in, we'll grow old together. It's a partnership. It's deep. It's meaningful. We know what this is. We don't even have to label it. We just know. Mm-hmm. And polyamorous people are like, it's enough for us. This is valid too. So the fact that for readers, they want to center the sex, that's why they struggle so much. Like even now I'll get DMs of like, just tell me Jake and Caleb will get together. And I'll be like, you're missing it. You're missing the point. The beauty that is their relationship is that they're not going to. They won't. I'm not going to change my mind. I want that representation there, But yeah, anyway, sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was going to ask too, was that your biggest revelation with writing these? Because we didn't ask you what your biggest revelation was for the book.
I think the biggest revelation I have had is how many polyamorous people are out there already. That I was flooded, especially over the summer. I was just absolutely flooded. My DMs were just open across all these apps of polyamorous people being like, thank you. Like, thank you. It feels like honest representation of polyamory, and this feels real. And we are polyamorous. Or like even in my life, like even friends that I have here that are like, I'm polyamorous, right? And it's like, shut up, since when? That kind of thing. It's like, so there is such a taboo that people are so quiet about it, but it's like they are everywhere. People are practicing this lifestyle way more actively than you think they are. And that's okay. Like, that's lovely for them. It's consenting adults doing what consenting adults want to do, But so that was a revelation for me of like just how many polyamorous people were willing to come forward, willing to out themselves to me and willing to talk about it. And then people saying, I have since reading my book, they came out as polyamorous to their partners, to themselves, and so that was really lovely to see as well. A revelation that one little book can do that. Like one hockey romance can have people being like, you've changed my life. I'm out as queer and poly, That's really powerful.
It has been so impactful.
Yeah. Well, we've just spent a good chunk of time talking about how it's not all about sex. But we are going to talk about our favorite spicy scene. How do you like that transition, guys? Mindy, will you go first? What was your favorite spicy scene?
I don't know.
Do you have 27?
There's so much to choose from. I mean, there's the shower stall 3-way. There's the arena closet 3-way. There's the after game 4-way.
Those work hour intercourse.
There's so much. But I think my favorite is the shower scene with all four of them together after Jake and Kay get together, like for real. So first of all, I love that Jake and Caleb are like totally drunk on love for each other, and I totally picture them stumbling into that shower together while Amari and Rachel are in there, and it just does something to my lady parts when Amari says, "Up, Rakas," and she jumps up because she knows what he wants, and then as if that wasn't sexy enough, the brilliant Emily writes, I have never climbed a man so fast in my life. I just it's perfection.
That's hilarious.
So mine also has to do with Jake and Kay. So I really love when Jake admits to Kay that he's in love with them. And like I mentioned earlier, Caleb's being punished for being a brat. And it's a really sweet moment when Jake finally lets him in on the fun and says, do you want to be mine too, troublemaker? And he then promises Kay to be his first and last, which I also find very, very sweet. And not only I've always been a huge fan of MM because I feel like when people write MM, there's not this like hesitance behind like saying how you feel almost sexually, right? And I think that's why I like MM so much. But getting to the end of that slow burn between Jake and Kay really did something for me. I love a good slow burn.
Did it do something to your lady
For your lady parts.
It did do something for my lady parts. And then I asked my husband to do something to my lady parts. So,
congratulations to him.
I will say a lot. Some of my favorite books are just because I feel like there is a freedom in writing how open men are sexually, right? And I'm hoping we'll get to a place where females are like that too. What about you, Whitney?
Well, it will not be a surprise to anybody that my favorite spicy scene centers around Omari, because I'm a simp for Omari. But I forgot to write down which scene exactly this was, but I think that it's the one with Omari, Rachel, and Caleb that we were talking about earlier. Where Caleb's like, you have to call me Caleb.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's that one. But where Ilmari tells Rachel that he loves her and can't live without her. And I just thought it was really sweet. And I know that's not really like spice, but
I don't know. It is.
I like that.
If it did something to your lady parts, then
it did.
You genuinely like feelings, right?
I do like feelings.
I can understand why that's important to you. Whereas I'm like, don't look me in the eye. Look over there. Emily, is there a spicy scene that you really love to write or that you really resonate with?
There was two that I thought of. One that's like the really sweet moment that it's like brought me to tears moment when I wrote it. And then the one that it came up as she was talking about Ilmari, and that is funny. I love in chapter 82 where it's like the group scene, and it's like it's a double penetration scene. I think Ilmari's on bottom, and Caleb's going in there, and Ilmari's just like, "Fuck, I forgot about his cock."
I really like that.
Feel like ribbed for your pleasure. Like, I love that of like, especially as you see the way the relationship develops as it goes on, right? This is a spoiler chat, right? So as the relationship develops going on, if it's like Mars was always interested in getting more of that cock. so that's really funny. But I think the moment a couple you already mentioned, the Caleb Jake moment. And I think a moment that it brought me to tears as I was writing it was because we're in Jake's POV and Jake is trembling as he's trying to take his pants apart. And Caleb is really calm and says, "I know how to undress you." And it's like, it hits you, like the layers of that line made me burst into tears.
You're going to make me cry.
I know. I'm tearing up right now.
Because it's like, he knows how to undress him, because it's like, I am the equipment manager. Yeah. I know every piece of this uniform. But then it's the layers of everything that they're dealing with of like, he is a hockey player. He was in this position. How many times has he taken off that jersey himself?
Yeah.
But that dream is gone. And the man that took it is right outside, and so it's just like, oh, I know how to undress you. And like, but just the trembling of Jake's hands as he's trying to do it himself. And so I was just like, oh my God. And I just broke into tears. It's like, I'm going to
fucking Jerry had to go ruin it.
Does your husband ever walk in and be like, oh my God, what's wrong? Like, does he do that when you're writing? And
yeah, what are you doing? There've been a couple times where I'll be like, are you okay? I'm just like, I on a podcast, you can't see it. Giving him a thumbs up or like, I'm okay.
I was reading a book the other night and it kept me up until 4:30 in the morning. And like 3 or 4 times I cried, and I realized I was crying hard enough to wake up my husband. And the next day he was like, what was going on? Because then he was also still asleep and like not really like understanding. Yeah. And I was like, it was just a sad book. And my husband reads to learn, so like he doesn't really, I'm not sure my husband's ever cried over a book, but I was like, it just really got to me, right? And sometimes I think books just speak to you in the moment that you need them to, you know what I mean? So yeah,
I would agree with that. What about chapter or section MVPs?
Mine's really short. Well, not short, actually. I wrote down Omari's penis. That is all. That is my book MVP, because so much of like the funny banter and quotes that I love about this book are all around that. I mean, it is his penis, while being a really great device, is a lot of comedic relief too. And I just think it's a good really
device in more ways than one.
Right? Yes. Yeah. No pun intended. So yeah.
Well, I said all 3 of the Price men.
Me too.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Look at us. Just everything that they orchestrated at the end of the book the letters of support for the owner, the general manager, the meeting that they arranged with Rachel and the general manager. And that was really sweet. I liked that a lot. And I thought it was, sometimes I don't like it in books when the partners kind of go behind the other one's back to like do something like that. Sometimes it feels sneaky, but in this case, I thought that it was just really sweet, and it felt more like they took a burden off of her instead of like doing something behind her back. You know, right. I really enjoyed that a lot.
I agree.
They freed her of having to
and
hide.
What's great about it too is that they all worked together. Like, I loved the communication and the relationship between them. Like, they all work together to come up with this elaborate plan to get her job back, and they quell the media frenzy before it even starts, and they support her while supporting each other as well. And then all of them, even during that one section, have so much growth, and they do it all while looking hot as hell. So I mean, it just, I think, as far as especially this section, that just moved everything forward, is that they finally are working together as a unit.
Yeah,
right?
I like that.
Yeah. What about favorite secondary characters?
Mine's a little bit skewed by Pucking Wild because I love Tess. I really do. Even the short snippet she has in this book, and you learn in the second book that she's a badass executive. She loves herself. She fully loves those around her. And she's really the true definition of, if I'm too much, go find less.
Yes.
And I mean, I feel that all the time in my life, right? As a woman with a very strong opinion on things. And I've really had to become comfortable with that, and I think Tess, just in both books, and I've not read the Happily Ever After books yet, but I think she just epitomizes like woman power, and like, you know what, if you don't like me, that's cool.
She definitely reminded me of you as well.
Yeah. I really, really love her. So she's a great character.
Mindy, what about you?
For me, it was Novi and Morrow. So not only are they hilarious together, but they're like genuinely sweet guys, right? Like the scene where they're trying to get Caleb to admit that he and Jake are a thing, and basically telling him they're cool with it and letting him know that he can talk to them, is just super wholesome.
I liked that scene.
And they were still keeping their like dude bro image like while they were doing it. It was just amazing. I just love them as characters, and I mean, again, we're spoiler heavy here, but the third installment does have to do with Novi and Morrow and Poppy.
Let's talk about our favorite quotes from this section. I have two. I know you.
Shocker, I have
we all
three.
Have more than one? Okay, well, let me go I'll go first then. I have one that was funny and one that was sweet. So the one that was funny was from Novi. It might have been the same conversation where they were talking to Caleb and Jake, but they were talking about Ilmari yelling at somebody that was making jokes about Caleb and Jake potentially like being together, and he said he made the poor kid cry. I never want him to yell at me in Finnish, and that made me laugh a lot.
I only want to hear Rakas from him.
I know, right?
Anything else?
It made me laugh a lot. And then the sweet one is from Ilmari. Of course, he has this whole really, really lovely speech to Rachel, and he says, "I want to be the one to carry the burden of your fears, your doubt, your worry, your insecurity. Lay them all on my shoulders. I am strong enough. I will not bend." And I'm like, yes, I want somebody to take all of my fears and my burdens. I just thought that was really sweet. I loved that.
So mine also have to deal with Ilmari, but it's what Jake is saying to Ilmari. So the first one is, you've got height and looks and the accent, and you can fuck all night long. He says, fuck, I even bragged to you about the night of 6 times. And like, poor Jake. I'm like, Jake doesn't have anything to feel inferior about. But he's like, oh, man. And then the second one, which is a sweet one, Jake says to Ilmari, you don't speak 10 words together for weeks, but then the 2 times you speak, you make speeches that should be printed out and sold with the free at-home pregnancy test. And I just love that Ilmari moves Jake all the time, right? It's not just Rachel, right? Jake's like, oh my God, I'm in awe of you. Like, you're so
like
cool.
the wise old owl in a cartoon.
He really is, yeah. What about you, Min?
Well, Emily's such a wordsmith. We tease all the time because I can't ever just pick one. So I have three. So my first one is when Jake says, we're all over here trying to build a pyramid and you're stuck with pencil and paper asking where you fit in the triangle. When he's talking to Ilmari, that is like classic Jake. Love it. And then I always love when Rachel's thinking to herself and she's thinking to herself about talking to Harrison about her situation. And she says, perfect seems trite, even though it fits. We're a perfect mess of messy perfection. I love what we are. I want to protect it, keep it hidden and safe. But the sexy hockey-playing cats are out of the bag now.
Can I just add on that I love so much that Harrison, whenever the boys walk up to her, they're like, who are you? And he's like, I'm her fucking husband.
I know.
Who are you? And I was like, oh my God. Like, what is about to happen
he's
right
such
now?
a shit stirrer. I love
he
it.
is.
Love it. I love when, this is just one of my favorites, when Caleb says, baby, the three of us have been doing press for 5 days, coming out in every way possible. Mars has even been doing it in 2 languages. Just that reminder that, like, we've got you, but just so sweet.
There's something really sexy about being not even taken care of, because that's not necessarily what I need, but to know that someone's got your back.
Yes.
Even if you don't need it.
Yeah.
One that I love that we haven't mentioned is where Caleb kind of sticks up for himself and sticks up for the guys, where like Rachel's kind of like anxiety spiraling. And Caleb's like, I'm not going to do this. We're going to go downstairs and we're going to sit down there. And when you're done thinking that this is all going to crash and burn, you come find us, and Jake is just trying to be like, no, like I have to fix it. And Caleb is like, no, we're not going to fucking do this, and I can't remember exactly what he says, but it's basically like, I have enough self-respect to know that I'm not going to beg her to stay. She's going to stay because she wants to stay. Mm-hmm. And so we're going. Yeah. And Omari's just like, agreed. Yeah. And they make Jake lead the way out. And Jake's just like,
if she leaves us, I'm going to fucking kill you.
I envision him being dragged by the arms.
Yeah.
Like, I envision him being dragged backwards out of the room. And he's like, I don't want to go,
Yeah. But it's like, Jake like sucks it up and sits down on the couch. But yeah, it's like, if she leaves, I'm going to fucking kill you. And Caleb's like, if she leaves, then she leaves, because she didn't respect us enough to stay and try and fight for this and trust us, he says it differently, but I can't. I love that scene.
That's a great scene.
Did anybody have any lingering questions?
One is just a like, I need to know. So after the Kraken game, Jake goes up to Amari and whispers something, and I think we're seeing it from Rachel's point of view. And she says, oh, Jake goes up to Amari, and he whispers something to him, but we never find out what he whispers. I don't think.
When is that scene?
It's after. I wish I'd written more. It's after the Kraken game. I guess they win. It might be the game that Elmari comes back. It might be Elmari's first game back.
Yeah.
And after they win, Jake goes up to Elmari, and Rachel's like talking, like seeing it, and she says, and Jake goes up and says something to Elmari. But like, I never know what, I don't know. Maybe it's not something that anybody needs to know, but I'm like, I want to know what he said.
Well, and we may just need to put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Like, that might be just or maybe Emily's like, I don't know yet.
And she's like, I didn't think about that, and I don't really care.
Yeah, it's not coming up in my brain.
Yeah.
I don't remember it. So
that's okay. I can like totally make up something in my mind. That's totally cool. I'm totally cool with that. But another one is just a comment. I just really need someone to write the song to Caleb about the vows Rachel made to him, because somebody mentions like that would make a good song. I just think that would be epic. And then I just want to know which guy for you was the most fun to write and which one was the most difficult.
Yeah, so I answer this question all the time, and it's the same person. The same person is the most fun to write and the most difficult to write, and it's Jake. And so Jake is the most difficult to write for me, because I really try and keep it authentic to him that he has ADHD and he has anxiety. And so he brings such a high energy To write him requires such a high energy of I have to, he thinks every feeling, every thought. His chapters are typically the longest chapters because we're a stream of consciousness with Jake, and it's high energy, high emotion, hills and valleys, of how he thinks and feels, the anxiety that he second guesses everything, so he can be very difficult to get inside of if I'm just not there. I don't suffer from ADHD, I don't think. Or if I do, I don't present it in the way that I'm trying to have him present, so it would be really difficult some days where I knew his chapter was up next and it was just like, I'm not feeling him. I often will refer to it as like, I've got to pull him forward. So it's like all the characters are in the head of like, I've got to pull Jake forward. And I do not have that energy in me today to be Jake. He's the most fun though, of when he comes out, when he's forward, it's like as easy as breathing. I have so much fun when I write Jake. You are always laughing if you're writing Jake, even if it's Jake in someone else's POV. Like if Jake is there, the energy is different. You're laughing. It's moving faster, right? So yeah, it just comes out easy as breathing, when it's working. But yeah, so he's the most fun and sometimes the most difficult to be like, oh, come on, Jake. Like
I can definitely see that. Yeah.
Like meet me halfway. Jake.
I really like the Jake, jokes,
Yeah.
the comedy,
Yeah, I do
the
too.
comedy moments. Those are hilarious. That's
Yeah.
it.
I think
The
Jake's my
sweetness,
favorite.
the earnestness that he brings, the honesty that he brings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's move into our nerdiest things of the week. Who wants to go first?
Why don't you go?
Me? Well, I only have a couple. Well, I got the flu. So I just now read my first book of 2024, which I really enjoyed it. And it was different than books that I would normally read. And so that's why I'm shouting it out. It is called Fire and Flight by Brianna Schaffery. And it's a YA fantasy book. And it was just a really perfect read for me coming out of the flu because it was I don't know how to describe it other than it was a very calming book. There's action and stuff happens, but there's a lot of inner dialogue and introspection narration and not a ton of character to character dialogue, which was easier for me to follow, still being I've had a fever for multiple days.
I want to say, I know that you had the flu, but now I'm worried about how sick you were that you couldn't read.
No, I
You had the flu.
No, I couldn't look at a screen. I couldn't stay awake.
If I had known that, I would have been delivering groceries to your
I was
door.
in bed for literally 3 straight days.
my- Yeah.
I didn't get out of bed for 3
Well, I
straight
knew
days.
that,
It was
but
bad.
I didn't realize you couldn't read.
Yeah.
God, that's really sick.
Yeah, I didn't read you guys. So
Wendy normally reads 10 books in 3 days.
I know, right? I had a lot of plans for this last week of winter break and it just didn't work out. But I really enjoyed that. The Fire and Flight book was really good. And also I just started an arc from a friend of the podcast, Kate Gately. It's her book 3 of her trilogy. And I messaged her because in the prologue, she just throws in this something from Irish or Celtic mythology, I guess, that was a vulva can be used to scare away demons. And I was like, what?
Well, and for Kate, who's so sweet looking,
I know.
yeah.
I messaged her and I was like, if you got demons being scared by vulvas, I am in. I am all in for this book.
Be sure to tell her what cunty means. Yeah.
She'd probably really love it. But yeah, those are my nerdiest things.
So I've got 3. And I know normally I'm a stickler about having one, but we've not recorded in a couple weeks. But literally all this shit happened this week. So I ordered and built a free little library. I've wanted one in my yard forever.
Oh,
We
I
live
love
back in
that.
a subdivision. We fully installed it actually today. I'm so excited about it. And my husband, even though I would call him a book nerd, but he just reads differently than I do. If he has a book he loves, when he sees it a bargain bookstore, he'll just buy multiple copies of it. And so he's like, can I put my copies in the little free library? I'm like, absolutely. So I thought it was really cute. So my second one was something I've already talked about how my husband has started walking by me and literally like pulling his shirt off one-handed.
I love it.
It is really hot. Like he's not a hockey player. It's really hot. And then my third one is that there is a local gallery doing a Valentine's art show. And so the submissions have to be 4x4. So I actually drew this really cute little stylized girl reading woman, I guess, digitized it for embroidery, and then I like stitched it out. It's super cute. I'm going to take it up to the gallery this week. And so people will come into that show and like buy the little 4x4 art pieces for Valentine's Day. But I really wanted something representative that wasn't like a relationship, right? Because Valentine's Day, not everyone is in a relationship. So it's like her reading a book, and the book is all embossed with like little hearts, and there's like hearts coming out of it, and she's like looking down and smiling. So I was really excited about that.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm like, not everyone wants to be in a couple for Valentine's Day.
That's why you're the creative one.
Well, you keep me on my toes, believe me. So a lot of nerdy stuff happening this week.
Yeah. So I have two. First, this past week, my husband was just outside of St. Louis for work. He's like, why don't you come with me? And I took 3 books and my Kindle, and I literally, while he was at work, sat and read all day. We got to watch hockey. We got to go see the Blues, which is our favorite. So we did stuff together, but like during the day, it was no interruptions. Nobody needed me. I didn't have to do anything. I had snacks. I had books.
Like?
God. Honestly, like I didn't want to come home. I was like, I could totally live like this. But then the other thing is when I came home, I was reading a book, and I've been reading more physical books lately. I'm trying to get through my physical TBR, and I really do love the feel of a physical book, but I have a book light because I read a lot at night. And when I stay up and read a book and I'm really into it, my book light dies out because it's like you have to like charge it, right? And I'm like, well, fuck, I don't have a light. Like, I'm like, so this week I ordered a second light so that when my first light runs out, I just grab the new one and then I plug the other one in. So I've always got a book light.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's necessary.
Love that.
Yeah.
My husband made fun of me, but I feel like I'm a genius.
You are a genius. He's wrong. That was smart.
I thought that I read a lot at night, Mindy.
Oh my God. I'm bad.
But I told you I stayed up till 4:30 the other night.
Yeah. Emily, do you have a nerdiest thing of the week?
Yeah, I have. Okay, so I have 2. So they both happened today. So the first one is today we went antiquing, and I had to be literally dragged away from purchasing an mid-18th century sedan chair from France.
Did you also post the fireplace mantle? Was that you? Today.
Yes, I saw that fireplace mantle. So there were 2 things that I wanted from this salvage yard, actually. One was the remains of a mine elevator, and the other was a 18th century French sedan chair. This thing was beautiful. It was like hand painted, and it has like pink velvet interior with tassels, and they had a sign on it that it's like, don't open the door, you'll let the ghost out. And my husband was just like, what are you going to do with a mid 18th century
Put it
French
in the living room
chair? And I was like, what wouldn't I do with it? I'll put it in the corner. Like, I'll put it in the corner, like
sit on it and let you feed me grapes.
Admire it. Like, I'll admire it. Yeah. And then there was the mine elevator, but that one would be really cool. And my readers are being very naughty and enabling me, because I said that I wanted to like take it, kind of polish it and clean it up. I want to do like a exterior sealant on it. And I think it would be amazing in a back garden, because you could basically put like a little, you could build a little thing in the bottom of it and have cushions. And it's like this little book nook, because it's like the 3 sides of an elevator. It's the coolest thing. And so once I showed the vision to my readers, because they were like, Emily, leave the elevator behind. But then I was like, but you don't understand. And I pulled a couple Pinterest pictures together, and then they were like, I see it like a thing that I'm seeing, and it's beautiful. Go get the elevator.
So when are you going back? That's what I need to know.
Yeah, well, because we're closing on this house. And so it's like my husband had to be the voice of reason of like, there's an HOA at this place that we're moving. You have to ask them if you can put an elevator in the backyard. So we're not sold on the idea yet because it's like, I don't think I can even ask the HOA about the elevator until
you close
on the house.
Right.
But he's like, my feeling is the elevator will probably be at this salvage yard for a while. So if it's meant to be, in a month from now, you can check in with me and you can ask if I put an elevator in my backyard. So that's a nerdy thing. And then the other nerdy thing is going to happen to you right now because you mentioned vulvas scaring away demons. And that I literally wrote an entire paper in grad school about this concept. It's called anasirma, and it is the curse of nakedness. And so it's basically across all of these different cultures, the idea of the woman's vulva having magic power. And so in some cases, it's things like scaring away demons, making crops grow, or cursing men. And so I'm an Africanist by trade and I do political science. And so I did an entire paper where I was looking at how African women strategically use this curse of showing your vulva to a man to enact political change.
I love that.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, there have been a number of different case studies across the continent where women have used their naked bodies as a political tool of revolution or social justice. So in Kenya, in Sierra Leone, in South Africa, Uganda, there have been so many different cases that I looked at, Ivory Coast. And so I basically was doing a study on how it was used well to like good effect and how it was used poorly. And in some cases, it even led to these women being murdered in the streets, right?
Gosh.
Of the police open fired on them, ran them down with tanks, right? Of daring to enact this curse, how it can be impactful and how it can be misunderstood. So yeah, I'm hitting you with that nerdy thing right now.
Emily, please tell me that's published somewhere.
I was just about to say.
So it's actually that piece that is not published. Yeah, I never actually moved forward with publishing it. I have it and you can read it. I presented it at a couple of conferences. I never actually got that far because then I started writing romance novels.
Yeah.
I will sign an NDA
For real.
Send that to me. I will sign a non-disclosure agreement. I want to read that.
That is
I do
awesome.
too. That would be amazing.
That is so cool.
Yeah, you should Google. There's a documentary out of Nigeria. It is fucking amazing. It's called The Naked Option. And so it is tracking a women's protest. It's women in the Niger Delta in Nigeria, and they literally brought the oil industry to a halt using nothing but threatening to take off their clothes. They barred the gates to some of these refining facilities, and when the men tried to come in to go to work, the women threatened to take their clothes off, and they were able to actually push for some of the demands they were seeking against these oil companies. It's an amazing documentary. And it's
Meanwhile,
called
we're getting unsolicited dick pics all the time. Right? Like, that is not for social change either.
One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah.
That's so fascending.
Okay.
I know. I love
I'm
that.
gonna
Thank
look
you
that
so
up.
much for, I want to share.
Dr. Emily peeked her head out.
Yes.
A little bit there. That's the nerd, right? Like,
You know what's funny is I
I tell you about Anasirma.
I had to stop myself more than once from calling you Dr. Emily while we've been doing this.
No, it's fine.
I was like, be cool, Whitney, be cool.
Before we go, Emily, what other, where are you this year signing?
I'm going to be a bunch of different places. I have a couple of local events coming up. So I actually have the Kensington release because I sold the paperback rights to Kensington for North America for the Jacksonville Rays series. So they're doing their initial re-release of Pucking Around on January 23rd. So I'm going to be here local in Jacksonville. I'm going to be at Femfire Books, which is an independent bookstore. And we're doing the pre-orders. And so if you're local to Jax, I will actually sign and personalize and everything there in the store. If you want to pick up the books, you can come meet me. I'll be in the store. I'll sign it. I'll sign anything you want to bring to me.
I've already pre-ordered 23rd. Mine, by the way.
Yeah. That's January 23rd. And then Galentine's Day, February 13th. I have another event here in Jacksonville. I'm going to be at the Jacksonville Public Library Southeast. I'm doing, they do a session called Lit Chat. And so they bring in all kinds of different authors and just people in the writing profession. So I'm going to be there. We'll do kind of a Q&A. We'll have a signing afterwards. Femfire will be there for that as well if people want to buy some of those books and have them signed there. So that's January and February. Both of those are Jacksonville events. And then I have, I'm going to pull up my schedule because otherwise I will get this wrong. Readers Take Denver in April. I'll be there for that. I'll be there for both of the days. I will be there there's like a special lunch thing. I believe they're still selling tickets to that. So if you wanted to sit at my table for the lunch, I'll be there at the lunch. And then I'll be signing. And then I actually have a little bit of a break. So that's April. And then in July, I'll be up in Canada. I'll be in Calgary for Romance Invades the Rockies. I'm super excited about that. I haven't done any Canada events yet. And then a little bit of a break again. September, I'm going to be heading over to Scotland. That's going to be a ton of fun. I'll be at Rare. So Rare in Edinburgh. And then October, Love in Vegas. So I'll be out in Vegas for that. So that's kind of end of October. All those events tend to fill up really, really fast if they're not already full. So it may be that you may have to be on the wait list for that. But in each of those cases, I'm working with either Kensington on the US-Canada side or Penguin on the Scotland side to probably try and do at least one other kind of thing, like a signing at a bookstore, like separate from the event, because not everyone can get into the events, can afford to go to the events. Yeah. So we're going to try and do something, watch my socials if I'm suddenly able to be like, Denver people, I'm going to this Barnes & Noble, like, see me or be square, But we're working on those details now. Coming out of the holidays, we didn't, it's like trying to get these bookstores is like wrangling cats.
Right.
So, but yeah, busy time. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. We always love when we get to talk to you. Yeah. So
we'll see you soon, Emily.
Okay.
Thank
you. Have a great night.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.
Well, that is it for this week. Next week, we will have a wonderful author interview for everybody. And 2 weeks from now, we will be discussing part 1 of our discussion of Gold by Raven Kennedy, the Plated Prisoner series, book 5. We'll be talking about chapters 1 through 16. Bye.
Like what you heard in this episode? Follow Our Nerdiest Thing on Instagram at instagram.com/Our Nerdiest Thing or Facebook at facebook.com/Our Nerdiest Thing. We love hearing from fellow nerds. Email us at ournerdiestthing@gmail.com.